And gentlemen, back again with a new video. Um, this time I'm going to be drawing, and I'm just trying to figure out how to work my phone again today. I'm not. No, it didn't change. It's just I have a hard time figuring out where the stream chat and all that is because I think that's stream chat. Eh. But I can't see the video. Oh, is that it? I think I found it. I'm guessing. Let me play with it for a second. I'm going to hold it away from my headphones. Is there chat going on? Hello? I'm trying to talk. Okay, there we go. Yeah, the chat's working on my phone, and sounds are working on my phone. I'm just playing around with it because normally Van's my person who checks chat for me. So, hi guys and gentlemen, back again with a new video, and this time I'll be doing more Dungeons and Dragons drawing art. But this time, as it says in my title, we'll be talking about bad guys in Dungeons and Dragons or in any story or any game or whatever. I'm just gonna talk about it. So I'm gonna just draw some of my characters or some bad guys that I've created before in Dungeons and Dragons mostly. But some of them aren't like well, I'm already running out of things to talk about or having a hard time talking about stuff. No, Van, not that. But basically, the bad guy, there's no main villain, I guess, in Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you can say there is a main villain, but not like final boss. Like, because I kept calling it final boss. And Van was like, there's not really a final boss depending on how your story goes. But there can be like a final boss. You just don't usually call it a final boss. You just call it like main villain. I'm just going on about like how, yeah, depending on your campaign and how your bad guys and stuff might work. If you're planning your own campaign, yeah. So I'm just kind of drawing guys from my campaign. Some of them are bad guys. Some of them the players thought to be bad guys at first, and we're like, oh, you're not really a bad guy anymore, I guess. Pardon? He's bad. I don't think we're talking about the same guy anymore, Van. But a lot of the guys that I'm just gonna draw the guy that Van thinks is also a bad guy later on. But I'm not telling him if he is or isn't a bad guy because Van's convinced he is bad. So I can't convince him otherwise that he is not a bad guy. And Van said he could, he would kill him if he could. So I'm adjusting this, but so bad guys in D&D are just one of the things you really need to have in a campaign, because then you actually are giving your players something to do. Because if you don't have a bad guy, I don't know what you're doing in the campaign. If you guys are doing something else in the campaign without a bad guy, then tell me, please. I really don't know what you'd be doing without a bad guy in the campaign. But bad guys you need to have in the campaign, and you don't need to have them. I just don't know how to do it without a bad guy.
Yeah, are you talking like a major villain?
I'm talking about major villains and minor bad guys.
As opposed to like just randomly fighting stuff.
Yeah, opposed to randomly fighting stuff, Van. And I'm just talking about like characters that are actually villains that are reoccurring instead of just like, oh, hey, look, a bunch of bandits and we killed them. Huzzah. We're done. We're done for the day. We're good. We saved the world. It's not what I mean. I mean more like guys like who are going to come back or are going to try and destroy your party, or guys who are trying to take over the world or something. I don't know. Will have these crazy wicked powers that they want to like prove to everyone that they're better and just stuff like that. And bad guys can do a lot of different stuff. There's a lot of different types of bad guys. But yeah. So.
Because I mean, for me, that's a distinction. For me, like a bad guy is like, you know, a goblin could be a bad guy.
Yeah.
But, you know,
a goblin could be.
Or a major villain, or kind of like somebody who's.
A goblin
works
could.
Against you as opposed to just doing your thing.
A goblin could be a bad guy, but a villain's more like a guy who works against your party or against your characters in your story.
So,
Instead of just like doing their stuff. Like instead of doing what they would normally do, like bandits or goblins, they just do kind of whatever. But well, they kind of do. They rob people, but they just kind of do their own thing. And villains, or major villains, or bad guys, tend to do really bad stuff to the party and to also people around them. Not just like. Okay, this is sounding confusing, but I'm going to try and explain it. I'm doing hand motions again. Is that they bad guys tend to be more like, I'm trying to think of the words to explain it. Bad guys tend to go after stuff the party has an interest in, rather than what their interest goal is exactly. Like they might share the exact same interest goal.
But yeah, like I mean, they'll tend to threaten NPCs that are important to the party.
Okay, so they threaten NPCs that are important to the party and stuff.
Or like a town that's important to the party.
Or a town, or just like anything that's valuable to the party, they threaten generally. Just to like, I guess, show that they're in power and they can do whatever they want. It's important that you're planning when you're planning a campaign that figure out what's important to your party to have the villain threat. Okay. Whoops. I keep clicking the wrong button. Because if you don't have that villain that is a threat to your party, then the party generally just kind of goes about their days and
it adds to it.
It adds to it, yeah. Yeah, you could just go do a campaign in Dungeon Delve, but whoops, I hit my mic. Sorry. I mean, yeah, if everyone wants to do that, that's fine, but it just means some campaigns go more about the whole, like, there's this huge bad guy that is dangerous and to the party. Because it adds to the experience, yeah. Yes, you do have bad guys in your campaign. I'm pretty sure you do have a major villain in your campaign, Van. Van has like, well, I think he has, I don't know which is which, the major villain or just the bad guy, because Van kind of blended them either together or they're both major villains. But he has this, in Dungeons and Dragons, he has this hobgoblin army. I want to use Van's thing as examples. Van has a hobgoblin army in his campaign that's trying to take back the land. And so a war is going to break out. We're pretty sure. And then there's also a necromancer who hasn't really done anything yet, but we're pretty sure he's a bad guy because of what we've been told and what he had with him, because he had this evil chalice thing in his possession. So for the player's point perspective, because I'm a player in his campaign, is from a player's point perspective, you don't know which is which. You don't know which is the major villain. It could be the hobgoblins are the major threat, or the necromancer could be the major threat, but you don't really know yet because, one, the necromancer hasn't really done anything. They don't wear t-shirts. They don't be like, hey, I'm the major villain over here. They don't have name tags.
Or they call him the BBEG, the big bad evil guy.
They don't call him the what?
Well, that's what they call the main villain in your campaign is the BBEG, the big
BBEG, big bad evil guy.
Yeah, he's like the main villain
Oh, okay. So BBEG is Big Bad Evil Guy, who's the main villain of your whole campaign, behind absolutely everything, which I have been thinking about for my campaign. I'm not going to say it because in
No, Star Wars reference wise, the Emperor,
oh yeah, Star Wars reference wise, the Emperor is the
big bad evil guy.
big bad evil guy. I keep forgetting the letters that go into that. So I'm just gonna call it the big bad evil guy. So the Emperor is the big bad evil guy who is behind everything in the story. And at the very beginning, if I remember correctly, he didn't really do anything. But like you could hear of him doing stuff. You heard of him before. But there's like not really the whole thing of where like, oh yeah, no, we've seen him before and we fought him before and pff, he's whatever. No, that's not how it goes. Is usually there is that guy in the background who just generally is in the background and he's the big bad evil guy. But you don't really encounter him till later on. So, until your characters are more powerful or they know what to do or they found his weakness or whatever. I don't think the Emperor had a weakness, but
Well, no, but I mean, he was operating behind the scenes
yeah, the Emperor was operating behind the scenes. Operating?
for like a long time.
For a long, long time, yeah.
He was up to stuff.
He was up to stuff. And you're like, yeah. I wish we could both talk over the microphone. Yeah, that would totally clear things up. Because I'm just sitting here laughing and everyone's like, why are you laughing? Ninja, why are you laughing? What are you laughing at? Anyways, you are totally funny, Van. I believe you have a sense of humor. It's not a rumor. It's a what? No. Anyways, so losing track of what I'm talking about. But the bad guy is a very important thing to have in like all stories. Is to have like a major villain or something. Like if you want to just go dungeoning, if you want to go dungeoning, then by all means go do that with your campaign or go do that with your friends in Dungeons and Dragons. But I mean, some stories are long running stories that have that major villain at the end. So I'm just kind of I realized in my art here what I'm drawing. I'm just slowly going up the list of characters you guys have met in my campaign. Not the characters, but like the guys who either were bad guys or you thought to be bad guys. I mean you guys. Not my viewers, I mean like Van. And not what my viewers have met. I mean Van. I mean like Van. So, there is a few different things I find creating a bad guy is I'm going to try and go through the list of stuff that I usually do. Is one, I pick a character, like, I just kind of make a character to start with. This is going to sound really confusing, but I make a character, like I draw it out first, because usually that's how I do references, is I draw out a character and what I think they would look like, and I try to make them look kind of like intimidating or scary or something along those lines. But to be honest, when you make a bad guy, you kind of want to also focus on like a little bit of backstory of why they're evil or why they're bad or why they do things the way they do. And Van, I'm going to try and explain this, okay? I'm going to do it. Hi, Ninja Enderman. Hey, Mario. How's it going? I just looked down at my phone. But yeah, so when you're making a big bad evil guy, is you want to focus on like backstory also for a little bit, but you also want to focus on like character creation. Like the way I do it is I do a little bit of both. Mine's not always the best way, but I tend to draw out the character and I tend to make like a backstory as if I was making a character in a story instead of a character in D&D, which I mean you can do. It's the way I do it is I make like a full-on character, like not a character sheet, but like I think of as if I was going to play this character, how would I go about it? Why would they be evil? What happened? What do they look like? What are their goals? All that stuff. So that's what I usually work on for a big bad guy. So I come up with like all that stuff. So like background stuff. So after I got the background stuff sorted out, then I kind of imagine what the character is like. So like just a little bit of background on what the character does. So like some cases sometimes they're just robbing people, sometimes they're just starting out with like attacking people and kidnapping them, say for example, or they do stuff like that. They just do like things like that to try and get away with it. Like get away with it without the party noticing, without the party knowing who it was. They just do stuff like that. Then you also try to think of stuff that they would try to do well, like in game, like when when you guys have like a party, not an actual party, and you have like a party in Dungeons and Dragons. You have the group that is going to be, well, running like also adventuring, doing stuff in the campaign. So I'm trying to think of where I was. So I'm kind of getting sucked into my drawing here as I'm just like thinking about what I'm drawing next. I'm also trying to practice like different anatomy, anatomy on characters, is because I'm not good at drawing muscular characters, but I've been trying to lately. So, but getting back on the topic, when you're making a big bad guy, you want to focus on a few different things. Like, what has he been doing all this time, or like in the background? Like, what is he doing when the characters are fighting? Like, say one of his minions. Oh no. Trying to think of examples right now. Maybe he's off, like in a different town, and he's doing something else. Maybe he's talking to like other minions of his. Maybe he's taking control of this one town, and he's like has like I don't know, the noble who runs the town or whatever in his power, under his control. So the players don't know that yet, but they can figure it out. So you kind of want to drop subtle hints, like maybe like what townspeople might know, like from other towns, because maybe the townspeople in that town aren't allowed to bring it up or talk about it. They're not supposed to welcome newcomers or anything like that. So, but you can have like the minions around to kind of enforce that, and not the main bad guy, because in this case, let's say we have the main bad guy, but we don't want the main bad guy to die, because then he's no longer the main bad guy. He just was some guy that they fought and won. So you want to make your bad guy strong, so it's also like a surprise to the guys, because I've done this in my campaign, is when these guys were, well, not these guys, but my group, when they were in my campaign, is they first encountered a guy, and they thought they're like, oh, we can take him on because the dungeon master never throws stuff at us that you can't fight, or and stuff like that. But you can throw that stuff at your players. It's stuff they can't fight right away. Maybe they can fight it later, but not right now. Because I forget, was it a campaign or a module that did that? What module did that? I don't know what module did that. Lots of things. You have to use your thinking instead of just attack everything head on. Well, lots of stuff does that, Van said. is you have to actually think instead of fighting stuff head on. Yeah, come up with a plan. You want to make your players think, or at least I like making my players think in my campaign. Instead of, yeah, you can go bulldoze this guy over. You have to actually make a plan, or else you can get killed. And because that's one of the things that can happen in Dungeons and Dragons is your character can die, and it's something I know I need to practice on. Is players aren't invincible, and you don't want to make your players feel like they're invincible. I'm just talking about overall D&D right now. But going back to bad guys. So we had the backstory made up. We have what they're kind of doing in the background. We have a little bit of an idea of what their character is like. I think that's a lot of the stuff that we were working on already. I don't know what else I do. I'm just trying to think of what else I do in my campaign. Is because in my campaign, I also tend to do stuff like make the bad guy sometimes I have like not major villains, but like some minor villains appear and have the party encounter them. Just so like the party is like, oh, so now we know who this guy is. We can maybe work against him or figure out something to do about him. Maybe like not the major villain, but the minor villain gave away a little hint about what the major villain is doing, or what the major villain has going on, or what, just something like that. So when we have all that laid out, you can just kind of like run the game as you wish, but I'm just talking about going on with background stuff. Because major and minor villains are kind of similar, but kind of different. Is because they're both villains. And some minor villains, I don't know a good example for my campaign of a minor villain. Well, I guess going in order. The second guy, the guy in the middle of my picture, that was a minor villain in my campaign, as he was a bad guy, like he was doing bad things, but the group didn't really get to know about that till like right when they fought him, because they heard about him before. They just didn't really know much about him. So what they did was they eventually figured out what was going on, found out where he was located, and took him on. And so that fight wasn't like the easiest fight. It wasn't the hardest fight. I don't know what Van thinks about it. It wasn't like the easiest fight, but it wasn't the most difficult fight. So that's how that fight went. Is just like fairly simple, straightforward. Is the bad guy just got to or one of the minor villains got to be encountered. Now, because this is my first campaign I've ever run, is it wasn't the best way to do stuff, but it was one of my ways that I did things. So I just kind of threw out the encounter. I didn't really drop many hints of what was going to go on next, but I just threw out that encounter and they defeated him. And then I let the players decide what to do with him next. It's because they didn't kill him, because my players attend to a lot of the time knock guys unconscious to question them after about what they were doing, stuff. They do that a lot to me.
Get information.
It's how you get information, yes, Van, but you guys do that a lot to me. They do it to me. You do not knock me out, no, Van, but like, I'm just trying to think of the next character you guys encountered. You guys encountered those three. Then you guys encountered this guy. This is the guy that Van is absolutely convinced is a big bad evil guy. You're convinced. Yet he's like a big bad guy, or at least a bad guy in my campaign. So I'm drawing him right now because I realize that none of my players I don't give very good descriptions. My players tried to well, I tried to describe characters like NPCs to my players, and I feel like I don't do a great job at it, so I find drawing them out to be easier. So sometimes I show off my pictures. It's like, this is what the guy you guys saw looks like. So,
Usually to a big round of
pardon?
I said usually to a big round of
Wow.
Well, that's usually what I say, isn't it?
Usually to a big round of, oh, yeah, Van. Because it's probably easier to, well, it's easier for me to show than explain. In Van, it's the other way around, I think. Yep. Okay. So, but going in order so far from my evil bad guys, who some of them are totally evil, some of them are not so evil. I lost words. But like some guys aren't so evil. Like I had this one guy in my campaign who's basically being controlled by another bad guy who that guy was an actual bad guy. No, you can totally listen. It's something you guys already encountered. But like is a guy that they thought to be a bad guy at first. And I mean some of them probably still do. But he wasn't really a bad guy. It was just more like a guy who was being like runner and had a guy in charge of him. So not so bad guy. Because he wasn't actually, well, he was doing things wrong, but because he was being told to, and he was like, I guess I should probably do this. Yeah, he was working for the wrong company, basically. Is So yeah, but I'm trying to think of things to talk about. Okay, so yeah. But like in my campaign, I'm just gonna keep referencing either mine or Van's campaign. Is I can't really talk anymore about the bad guys in the campaign because I don't really know what to talk about anymore. Is because we went over like how to start one, I guess, and like backstory and appearance and all that stuff, and how to enter in a little bit
For me, motivation
motivation.
and having like a long-term plan that they're trying to accomplish.
Okay, I don't really have that in my campaign. I don't think.
And the other way that is, I mean, sometimes what they are going to
Let me
accomplish.
talk. And say is there's like motivation for bad guys is also really good to have in the campaign because then they act like long-term goals, so they can actually have something that they're doing for long term. There, you can continue, Evan. I was just gonna say I was gonna forget all the words that you said, and I was gonna sit here in dead silence because I didn't know what to say next.
No, but I mean, if you understand your villain, then you can adjust their goals based on what the players do. Like some guys want to do the same thing all the time. Sometimes if the players get involved, they're like, "Oh, I hate that guy. I gotta go get him," and they'll just spend the rest of the campaign messing with the players.
Okay, so some bad guys change their plans to go after what the players were doing. I guess. You look confused. Am I saying things wrong?
Go after what the players are doing.
They try to mess with the players, or they try to just do whatever the heck they were doing.
Well, some of them have like a goal that's just their goal, and they're gonna do it no matter what.
Okay, some guys just have a goal.
And some of them just kind of get caught up with like if the players' characters are getting involved, depending on what the villain's like. They can sometimes get distracted by the players and start forgetting about their goals and just try to get the players all the time.
Okay, so some guys get distracted and go after the players because they really hate those players.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Or sometimes they have goals and they just stick to them no matter what, and they're just going to complete their goal.
yeah, it depends on the personality of your villain. I mean, understanding the mindset of your villain is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, understanding what your villain's going to do is really important.
How he sees the world.
how he sees the world, how he does things, what he thinks about certain things. Like, not like everything. You don't need to make a list of what he thinks about. Yeah, likes, dislikes. You don't.
Does he prefer
Spaghetti
spaghetti or bow tie pasta?
or bow tie pasta. Is this guy you're drawing a ninja or assassin? It's neither. It's an evil guy. It's not a ninja or an assassin. Are you leaning over at my phone just to see what's going on? Maybe. Yes, get your own phone, Van. Next time what? Next time where?
You need something. Yep.
Get your own phone. Anyways, I don't know what Van's talking about anymore. Van's telling me I'm gonna get something apparently later, or not get something apparently later. Okay then. Oops, I colored the wrong thing. I don't know what you're talking about, Van. So it doesn't really sound threatening. It's not perfect because Van was trying to sound vaguely threatening, but it wasn't really working because I don't really know what he's talking about. So, you'll be back? Okay then. So, I don't know what to talk about. I'm running out of ideas. How to build regular characters?
Well, no, because usually you take an idea and you don't want to build those super characters because D&D for fun is having characters that
Having like a regular character, like building like a player character? Okay, I'll just go over that. So player characters. Okay, this is like not about bad guys anymore. Why is his face wrapped in bandages? Oh, that's just the design I went for this guy. Just 'cause reasons. I can't really say a whole lot because I don't want Van to find out or anybody else in my party to find out why or the reason why. Because I don't want them to be like, oh, I know I know the reason why this guy has this, and they're going to take advantage of it, or, you know. So, So making a regular character, making like a player, like somebody you're going to actually play in a campaign. I keep zooming in and out of my screen. So making like a character that you're going to play in a campaign. So, you start with a character sheet, first of all. And so, I don't really have a character sheet reference here, but you roll stats and stuff. But to go on about the actual backstory and stuff, designing the character instead of being like, oh, my character's so OP and everything, it's good to have character flaws. I know the way Van does his rolling of stats is, I'm just going to jump through this for a quick second, is he rolls stats like, you can roll the 6 stats, so like you roll it 6 times, then you roll another 6 times, so you roll a total of 12. But you have 2 groups of 6. So you either pick group 1 or group 2. So, first of all, when you get those stats, you pick a group 1 or group 2. And sometimes Van, well, he makes you roll 2 just so if you get like suckiest stats in the world at the very beginning, then you don't need to keep the sucky stats. But I mean, like if you have 1 or 2 bad stats, that's a cool thing to have, is because we actually take advantage of that a lot in Van's campaign, is because, well, when you have like a good, like a sucky stat, you can run with that. You can actually have a reason why your character isn't like the perfect person. And like I know sometimes people want to have that perfect person character, but a perfect person isn't realistic. Like having that character as like nothing ever goes wrong for them, like they're just everyone loved by everyone, all that stuff isn't realistic. Like, I mean, you can have a person who is well liked when after you meet them and like, okay, you can have a person or a player character be liked when you get to know them, but not like, oh, they are immediately loved by everyone as soon as you encounter them. That's not realistic. So, when you're making that kind of thing, is you want to actually have like a reason why, like reasons why your character gets like is friendly or liked, reasons why maybe your character isn't so much liked. Just reasons in general is a good big part of your backstory, is because if you don't have reasons of why your character is the way it is, it's just kind of I guess a see-through backstory almost, is it doesn't seem realistic. It doesn't seem like it's relatable at all. So I don't know. When I make a backstory, I tend to have the flaws and all that included in the backstory. So like reasons why my character's like this, reasons why my character does the way she does things, or why she's went on adventuring and stuff. Because it's another thing is when you go adventuring, you're going to leave a lot of world that you used to know behind, and you're risking your life to go do stuff when you're adventuring in like Dungeons and Dragons. So when you do stuff like that, you want your characters to have a backstory explaining stuff. You don't want to just be like, oh yeah, no, my character is perfect, loved by everybody. They can do whatever they want because they're fantastic and perfect, and yeah, they decided to go adventuring because they thought it'd be cool. That's not a reason. Those aren't very good reasons. Like, you want to have like it's hard to explain for me. But like, okay, for example, my one character, her backstory. Well, we're in a campaign. I'm going to talk about the one group that I was in at a game shop. Is she was a tiefling from Dungeons and Dragons. A tiefling's like a half human, half demon like thing. And she was like I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Her backstory, well, her appearance first of all. She's a yellow tiefling with maroon hair, and she has a broken horn. Simple enough. I gave a reason why she had a broken horn. I explained like her home life, what it was like. I just gave little reasons and stuff to little things like in her story. Well, in the story campaign the campaign was being like there was like this army that was trying to like enslave and take over the area and trying to like attack people and basically like kill them. So her backstory, because the people that were doing that stuff were tiefling, half orc, and dragonborn, which are some of the races in Dungeons and Dragons. So when I was doing like when I was making her backstory, my dungeon master told me to make sure that she like was like to make sure I knew that she was going to maybe get like not like in trouble, but like get people not very liking her very much because she is a tiefling and that's what was on the other side of the army. So we were discussing like reasons. So my backstory, my character backstory was, this is going to be about Acta. Acta was a tiefling who grew up on the side of the army. So she originally did come from the army because that's where most of the tieflings were. Is was being run by that army. So, because she was born there, she got raised by two tiefling parents. So, this is like kind of going opposite. She wasn't evil. She just was like, it's hard to explain. She grew up on the side of the Savinian Empire. Oh, I just gave it the name. Savinian Empire was the army that was on the other side. So they were basically attacking people and enslaving people and killing people, basically. So she was young when she left, but when she was like a little girl, her mother ended up taking her or getting her out of the army's holds because she didn't want her to be there. So Acta, when she was young, left the army. So that's one of the reasons why she's not as evil, or maybe a reason why she isn't evil is because she didn't grow up with that experience of fighting people and stuff and getting that training to fight. Later on, well, because she was a warlock, she made a deal because she got told to leave the army place, and so she did, and she waited for her mother to come back, but her mother never did come back. So it's kind of sad. So have that little bit of a sad part of the story. I'm gonna stop drawing for a second, just explain because I'm getting way off topic in some parts. So she left. Her mother told her to leave, and so she ended up getting smuggled out. And she waited for her mother, and her mother never came. So Acta ended up taking it into her responsibility, and she ended up like, well, she was mad because she knew what was kind of going on. She knew that the a war that was going on, or the war that was going to happen, that those people weren't very nice, and her father was an officer. So, excuse me, so she ended up fighting back later on. Like, she didn't really fight back, but she decided that she was going to try and take a stand. So, she made a deal with a patron and became a warlock, and then before she got to take back her mother, or got to go fight back, there was boats being shipped off, like there were people leaving the land, so they actually took her with her. The people took them with her, it's hard. English is hard sometimes. They took Acta with them on the boat, so everyone could like take off and have like a new life and stuff. So Acta was really upset. But basically, backstory that explains like why she's not evil is she took the whole idea of wanting to get back at them differently, instead of like, oh, I'm a part of them, I am evil, I must be like that because I'm a tiefling. She took it that way. Also, when you're thinking of backstory, you want to think of different stuff, like reasons. So like Acta, why her horn was broken, as I thought of, is because when she was younger she used to get into trouble a lot. she would joke and prank people a lot. So when she was joking and pranking, taking off the one time to try and get away from people that she was pranking with, is orcs, like half orcs, got a hold of her and broke her horn. Very simple enough. Is just reasons. Reasons are a big part of having like a backstory. So just make sure you have that. And character creation, if you have a low stat, just go with it. Don't be like, oh, I have a low stat, this is gonna suck. And don't be like that. It's like when you have like, I'm gonna shade right now because I'm gonna keep talking for a while. When your character has like a lower stat, it's easier to be like, have like a flaw. So like why your character is like that. And backstory builds into a lot of this. But, yeah, I don't really know what else to talk about. Is because you can't have a perfect character, because in real life, nobody's perfect. So, I don't think, like, you can try to in D&D have a perfect character, or you can even run with it. Have a character that thinks they're perfect, but that's their flaw, is they just think that they're perfect, and they're not actually that perfect. They just believe that so much or so strongly. So that could be like a flaw your character has, is they're really, really not confident in themselves. They're like full of themselves. They believe that they are perfect in absolutely every way, even if they're not. So, I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, that's another thing that Van and I were talking about the other day. Is why? It's just a question I have. Not that I'm insulting people. I'm just asking. Why do people want to roleplay like another character from a story that's already created? Is because I just don't understand. Is because when we're talking about it, is we saw this thing on Reddit, is somebody was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be like a Pokemon trainer. And I was like, why would you want to be a Pokemon trainer? I understand you like Pokemon, but why don't you go play Pokemon instead of playing Dungeons and Dragons? You don't have to take that game and play it in another game, because if you're wanting a break from that game, basically, then why are you bringing that game with you? I don't understand. It's just like, why I don't understand why people want to be like a character that's already created, because like, hey, look at me, I'm a hero that's already a hero. That's what I basically see. Is, I don't know. But yeah, is because, yeah, but D&D bad guys, like, you can have bad guys and not so bad guys and big bad evil guys. You can have a few different ones. So I have a few different ones, like that, like some guys that are not so bad guys, some guys that are actual bad guys and are dangerous. Some of them are big bad evil guys. So like they're really, really dangerous. So yeah, you just kind of do whatever floats your boat when you're making a bad guy. Is because you just kind of, well, I found when I was dungeon mastering is it was hard because I had this one player in my group. And I'm not going to name names, but this one character in my group ended up just like, he always seemed to question it, what I was doing, which you don't question the DM. That's just the one rule you don't do. Like, you can ask, but you don't be like, you can ask in a way that's not rude. It's because the way he would ask would be like, well, I thought this would happen, but oh no, you're the DM, so it's being more passive aggressive than actually asking. So like, you can ask, like, say for example in my campaign, what the situation was is the guy thought he should have gotten a perception roll on what happened, because the bad guy got a surprise attack. So he didn't let me explain, but what happened was I took the thoughts of what happened, of what I thought was going to happen, is that they said they were rushing downstairs. They didn't say they were being actively watching. They didn't ask for a perception roll. They just kind of went booking it down a set of or a flight of stairs. And so I didn't think that they were actively looking. They didn't really get to look actively if they're just running down a flight of stairs. And then they got a surprise attack. It's that simple. But like if you want to ask your DM something like that, just be more like, okay, I have a question. I thought that maybe would I have been able to get like a perception roll before that happened, or and if your DM's like nice enough, they would be like, okay, or sometimes they'd be like, well, and then they explain themselves, like the reasons. In like some cases, no, you don't get a perception roll. In other cases, yes, you do get a perception roll. But like, it's just kind of all, you have to listen to your DM. You have to trust in your DM is going to make the decision that is like a good decision. You have to trust that your DM is going to be able to make a decision on like that's a good one. Like sometimes DMs don't make the best decisions. Like I know because I'm a DM, I don't always make the best decisions. But you have to kind of put that trust in your DM to be able to make a choice and stick with it. Is because you can't just like, if you're bending your DM backwards, like if you're like bending them over backwards, asking them questions, being rude to them, then they can just take you out of the game. Because it's their game technically. It's like everyone's there to have fun, and with you arguing with the DM, that's not fun anymore. Is because maybe it's not fun for you not being able to be right all the time. But that's not the type of game you're playing. You're playing a teamwork game. And it's a story, not your story. It's like everyone's story. So, you kind of have to understand that before you go play Dungeons & Dragons. Because one other player I was playing with is, I was a player, and he was a player. And we got into arguing so often, but like, he just never listened to my character, and he was the, well, I guess stereotype would be one of the words to use, but like, he was the guy who didn't want to, he's like that guy who was like, oh, I don't talk to anybody, nobody can understand me, or life's so hard and all that stuff. So the DM, and like, he would also argue with the DM. And the one time, the DM actually looked at his backstories, because DMs, once you make a backstory and hand it in, it's theirs. So whatever you didn't come up with, that's a good thing to do with actually in your backstory. Is if you have a backstory with some holes in it, you don't need to wrap up absolutely everything. You can leave little cliffhangers on your backstory, like stuff your character never found out. And the character in this situation ended up thinking that his life is horrible and, oh, I can't talk to anybody and stuff like that, and the TM actually took his backstory, and it came and bit him in the butt later on. Is the one part he didn't fill in, is because, well, I can't really explain the backstory because I don't know it because he never talked about it, but like, it was just funny. I thought it was so amusing, and because I'm like, oh wow, you didn't see that coming at all, did you? And because you didn't. Because when you leave little loopholes or like little holes in your story, in your backstory, then that makes for a better actual story for the DM to morph your backstory into the story. Is because just that little bit of backstory that you left out then makes for a better story, because then your DM can actually throw in your backstory with that little thing you left out. So when you're making a backstory, I just had a hair on my face, sorry. you're making a backstory, leave little cliffhangers in it. Like, I'm pretty sure Van's backstory for the one character that he was playing as, I don't remember it off by heart. But his character actually ended up having like, he was like a soldier and stuff, and he ended up, I'm trying to remember, is he, okay, I'll just use a different backstory because I can't quite remember it, is because, oh, it's buffering, give me a sec. But like, in his backstory, or my backstory, is my character thought life was great and everything was fine. But some things that she might not know about is like, well, whatever happened to her, like, because her family, she left to go to school, then came back to take care of her family when her mother left because she didn't have a father, but her mother also left, so she's taking care of her brother and sister. And when, and so she just like went to take care of them when her brother was old enough to take care of her sister. Then she left again. So, she just kind of like did a bunch of that stuff. So some things that she might not know about is like, well, how her brother felt. Because my character didn't know that. She, like, well, I talked with the dungeon master about it, but like, me and him were talking about it. It keeps buffering. Give me a second, guys. I don't know if this is just me or if it's just like, I don't know why it keeps buffering. If it's just my phone that's buffering or if it's everyone that's buffering. I'm just gonna keep talking, and then when it's, I'm just gonna exit the stream in a minute, but I'm going to finish out my story. But basically, I talked about with the dungeon master already, and my character wouldn't know how her brother was feeling. Is because in that situation, her brother was probably maybe feeling in the situation like, okay, she left and she didn't really take care of me when I needed it, but oh, now my mother's left. Okay, now she's back to come be the hero and take care of everybody again. And maybe he felt a little bit upset, maybe he felt grouchy about it. I don't know. My character doesn't know. My character is thinking that she was being helpful and supportive of everyone, and just little things like that is the DM can work with. So you don't need to like fill in absolutely everything of how everyone feels or how everything ended and stuff like that. Just leave little holes or little hooks in your backstory for the DM to play with. So I think that I'm going to just end the stream here because it keeps buffering on my phone and I'm not sure if it's actually working properly. So hope you guys enjoyed the video and see you in the next. Bye!